Welcome to Master Series. I'm your host, Noel Metter, and today's guest is Dr. Sue Johnson. Dr. Johnson is a clinical psychologist and a distinguished research professor at Alliant International University in San Diego. She developed the emotionally focused couples therapy and is a recognized leader in the new science of relationships. Dr. Johnson has written several academic studies, articles, and books, including Hold Me Tight and today's focus, Love Sense, the revolutionary new science of romantic relationships. She has trained thousands of therapists in North America and around the world. Dr. Sue Johnson, welcome to the show.
Hey, happy to be here.
Well, it's good to have you. And for our listeners' sake, today we're going to be talking about this book, which is phenomenal. And it really is going to give us a focus on secure attachment. And you talk about 3 different types of attachments. Let me start with this question. What are you referring to when you say love sense?
Well, I guess I chose that title for the book because really what I was trying to say in a nutshell, I was trying to say to people, love isn't some strange, mysterious mix of sex and sentiment that you just can't understand, where you fall in and you fall out. At this point, after the last 20 years of research and people like me contributing to that research, because I've worked with thousands of couples at this point, what I'm really trying to say to people is we have really cracked the code. We do understand what love relationships are all about. We understand what goes wrong. We understand how to put it right. And that's pretty revolutionary. What we're really saying is we can make sense of love, and what you understand, you can shape. And that's a pretty new idea, for thousands of years, ever since civilization has began. The sort of basic approach from poets and philosophers and anyone at all is that romantic love's a mystery. And what I'm really trying to say is that is way too much costlier point of view these days. We can't afford that anymore. We have to make sense of love. Our love relationships are too important. So I called it Love Sense.
I like it. Well, I think that helps really give some context for today's show and this Master Series class, because you've tied this to not just, like you said, there's this idea of romantic love and it's a mystery and we really don't understand it. And yet our society gravitates towards it, but we can't make sense of it. Maybe unpack for our listeners this attachment theory and that deeper issues are not necessarily disagreements that trigger them. What are these deep attachment questions that we have as it relates to your research and a lot of the work that you've done with couples?
Yeah. So there's about 50 years of research here, so I'm going to try and just give you a bit of it. Okay.
Yes.
I think the most useful thing is to think about where it came from. It really came from people way back in the 1960s and 70s, looking at mothers and infants and saying, how can we understand what happens between mothers and infants? And in those days, people just thought the infants were like kind of little dolls that just sat there. You kind of did things to them in a conversation. We didn't understand how active infants were, how they're processing information all the time, and how it's really a conversation, even with a little baby. You don't have words, but if you watch us with babies, we go, hi, and we change our face, we make our voice higher, we open our eyes, and the baby does the same thing. So it all started with that, and it started with trying to understand what happened to infants when the mother just turned away or left the room for a few minutes, and how come this was so distressing. Part of that was at the end of the Second World War. Psychologists went and talked to widows and orphans, and they started to try and understand grief and loneliness, and it all came out of that. But the bottom line is, all this research on bonding has already revolutionized parenting and the way we relate to our kids, the way we see kids' emotional needs. Like, you wouldn't dream of taking your kid to the hospital now and dropping your kid off for 5 days and going home and never calling that kid or seeing that kid. You'd think that was bizarre. We forget that's the way it was until about the middle of the 1960s or even later. That's the way it was. So understanding how much we need connection with a few precious people on the planet, how it impacts us, not just emotionally, but physiologically in our body. That started with mothers and infants. And it wasn't until about the 1990s that people started to say, hey, adult lovers aren't that different, you know. Hey, go and look at airports. Look at adult lovers saying goodbye. Look at adult lovers saying hello. Look at the way people hold each other, gaze at each other, you know, weep when somebody's leaving, weep with joy when somebody arrives. You know, look at these faces. Hey, it's the same stuff.
Yeah.
And for a while, there was real pushback on that because the sort of wisdom at the time was, no, somewhere around the age of 12, you kind of become independent and you don't need other people anymore. And that's the way it should be. That has totally done a huge shift in psychology and in psychological science to the point where we start to understand this need to be connected to a few precious others. Basically, to know that if you call, these others will turn and respond to you and come and be with you, that you are not emotionally alone.
Right.
This need goes from the cradle to the grave. So we've just started to really understand that romantic love is not just a mixture of sex and sentiment. It's ancient, wired in survival code that's designed to keep few people you can trust and depend on close to you.
Yeah.
And it's a source of strength.
Let me ask, so thank you for giving us a little bit of the context, the history behind secure attachment. When you went into great detail, and I think the link between the child-parent relationship and some of this attachment bonding that's taking place, and then what you refer to as adult lovers and the attachments happening there, you've kind of boiled that down to three distinct styles or model attachments, one being anxious, another one being avoidant, and then secure. What are the benefits to healthy attachment, and how does our childhood influence our ability to express that secure attachment or avoidant attachment, depending on where you're, fall on the spectrum?
Okay, you've just asked about three questions in there.
I probably did.
Yeah, okay. So the benefit to a felt sense of secure connection with another person, that you're special to them, that they have you in mind, you matter to them, that you can call on them and they'll come, that they're accessible and responsive to you. The benefits to that are enormous. We are wired for this connection. I don't even know how to begin. Like, if you look at securely attached folks, as children or as adults, what you see is securely attached people are more mentally and physically healthy in almost every way you can imagine. Securely attached people are more resilient for trauma. They deal with stress better. They give an example, 9/11, some research on the people who were right around the towers and looked at them after the event and 18 months later. People who said that they have one or two others to go and confide in, that they could cry with, they could be comforted by, who would come when they called, that they knew they could go to them when suddenly they had a flashback. Those people were doing pretty well 18 months later. The people who said, no, they didn't really have people like that because people didn't want to listen, or they were never sure that people were really interested, they couldn't count on other people, or the people that said, no, they didn't believe in that. They should be able to handle this alone. Thank you very much. Nothing had really happened that day. It was fine. Those folks were doing badly 18 months. They had PTSD symptoms. They were anxious, preoccupied with the event. We know, and I'm just telling you one study.
Sure.
There's hundreds, okay? Secure connection with another person allows you to feel that you're not alone, and so all the dangers of life just look smaller and more manageable. You're more socially skilled if you're securely connected. You learn how to assert yourself. You learn what your own needs are. Start to trust other people. You're more able to confide in other people. You're more able to use the care other people give you. You're less likely to be depressed. If you have a heart attack, you're more likely to recover from the heart attack and go on your health regimen and reduce your diet and not have another heart attack. If you have a securely attached partner who is able to stand beside you and help you with that challenge, bottom line is secure attachment just makes us stronger, healthier, more aware, more able to connect with others. It's sort of like, the essence of what a well-developed person is. But we sort of understood that a well-developed person shouldn't really need other people. We haven't understood that this ability to connect with others is an amazing source of strength. Men in battle know that. Men in battle depend on their buddies. And I think it's very significant that the motto of the U.S. Marine Corps is not go kill the enemy. Yeah. The motto of the U.S. Marine Corps is a Marine never leaves another Marine. You listen to that. That's about attachment. That's about bonding. Men are able to face war and the terror of war because they don't do it alone. They do it with their buddies. And they know that. I think what they maybe don't know when they come back from war to our society is that, really we're designed to have that kind of connection with our lifelong partner as well. Sometimes adults are ashamed, actually, of telling their partner about their vulnerability, comfort, and reassurance. We actually think that's a weakness, but this stuff says it's strength. Okay, so where were we? I think I answered one of your questions about what's the benefit of secure attachment.
Right. I think the next one is when you look at the development of a child and their parent and how that connection was formed, how does that influence later in their life, that adult connection with their lover and their relationship? So let's just stop there and ask that one.
Well, it makes sense when you think about it that you learn let's think about it in terms of a dance. A relationship is a dance. And emotion is the music to that dance, the emotional signal music. So where do you learn to dance? Where do you learn to send these emotional signals? In your family, right? So we learn sort of how to engage other people and how to send these emotional signals and deal with our emotions, in fact, in our family. So that is natural that learning carries forward, right? And the issue there is it's not like there's something that you learn in childhood and you can't revise it. That's not true. You can revise it. The tricky part is, you can have a pretty terrible childhood, meet a wonderful person, fall in love, and they can actually teach you a new way to dance.
Mm-hmm. Yes. My wife would absolutely agree with that. She's been trying to teach me how to dance since we met. So
right. So they can teach you a new way to dance, and they can teach you new music, and they can teach you about your emotional needs, and that's wonderful. Falling in love, one of the reasons it's intoxicating is it's a second chance for us to grow, and find out who we are and look into somebody's eyes and find out that, hey, we're lovable and we're special to somebody. It's a wonderful thing, right? But the tricky part is some of us get stuck. Because if your childhood is quite deprived and you really don't ever see a positive dance of loving and connecting, maybe people disagreeing and then being able to repair and come back together, if you never see that, you never experience being hurt and vulnerable and calling to a person and having them come and pick you up and calm your nervous system down, which is what attachment does. Calm your nervous system down, bring you back into balance, show you it's okay. You can manage fear. You can manage danger. It's okay. If you've never experienced that, it's foreign territory. If you've experienced that, in fact, when you're vulnerable, other people are either not present for you, not there, or they are dangerous. Mm-hmm. That's tricky because that lesson is burned into your brain. And you carry into your adulthood a certain wariness, a certain doubt about other people, a certain need to protect yourself. And, it can be revised, but sometimes we get really stuck there. And then we have not so good relationships with our romantic partners. And all those dreadful negative views of other people and self, all those fears get confirmed. We get hurt. And then we get in a really stuck place where it's kind of like our vision is so dark, our glasses are so dark. We expect to be hurt, we expect to be let down, we expect to be rejected. And we don't have much tolerance for, the other person making mistakes or hurting our feelings, stepping on our feet in the dark, and we're always vigilant for these dreadful expectations to be confirmed. And then we almost produce exactly what we're worried about. We watch our partner, and when our partner disappoints us, we get angry and critical. Then our partner shuts us out. And then we say, there you are, you see? I knew you weren't going to listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
There you are, you see? You've just walked away from me, just like everyone else in my life. What do you think? I'm some idiot? Why should I stay here and keep trying to trust you? People get stuck. But I want to say something about that. We have this deep longing for connection. And our experience is that if you get those people some help, and you help them see what's going on, and you help them understand what's happening and their own longings, people can change even that level of pessimism. They can.
Yeah, because I think the question I have, it sounds great from a theory standpoint. I think the longing for connection, it makes a ton of sense. But when you're talking to a couple who is actually in that stage of, I think you talk about demand withdrawal, like they're in that place where they're asking almost self-fulfilling prophecy around the negative spin and they're interpreting all the behavior through this negative lens.
Yeah.
How do you actually get them to move beyond that back into a place where there is compassion and empathy and a lot of this connection that you're talking about? It seems like for some that they're so far gone by the time they actually seek the help, the pain threshold's so high. Is it possible? And what would you say? What does that look like?
It's more than possible. Our research, which is the best in the couple therapy field by far, says that we can take 70 to 75% of couples and take them into being non-distressed. And it doesn't really matter how distressed they are when they come in either. What matters is how hard they're willing to work. We can take them and we can improve the relationship significantly of about 86% of couples. And these results, we find them again and again and again. We've done about 17 outcome studies now.
Yeah.
And the results also seem to last. But I think the reason for that is that we're on target. We know what is happening and we know what to change. You don't have to change everything in a relationship. You don't have to sit and talk to somebody about the chores you don't have to deal with every difference in the couple. Okay, you don't have to do that. What you have to do is the issue is emotional disconnection. All couples fight. But the couples that make it are able to turn back towards each other and repair that fight and emotionally reconnect. People get stuck in emotional disconnection. So just to give you a synopsis of what we do in our therapy, which is called EFT.
I'm thinking about the individual who's listening, who is in that really negative place and it just looks hopeless. What are some practical things that they could do right now?
You got to slow down because I'm going to tell you how we get there first, okay?
Okay. Okay.
What we do is we help people understand the negative dance they're caught in. We help people understand that underneath that horrible demand withdrawal dance that predicts divorce in North America, underneath that, the person who's demanding, whether it's a man or a woman, is usually desperate. And they're saying, where are you? Where are you? Are you there for me? Will you connect with me? Do I matter? Will you be open and responsive? Where are you? But it comes across as, aren't you going to talk to me? You never talk to me, which sounds aggressive. Okay. But underneath, they're trying to say, I can't find you. I'm disconnected. You're my special one. I'm in this emotional bond with you. Where are you? They come across as aggressive, and the other person withdraws, and underneath that withdrawal is all sorts of feelings of, I feel rejected. I'm being told I'm blowing it. I'm doing it wrong. I don't know how to do it right. Never going to do it right. I can't stand this. It hurts. And by the way, the research says this kind of rejection is processed in our brain in the same place and the same way as physical pain. It's a danger cue. For you, your body doesn't really distinguish. Rejection from someone you love is the same as stepping on a nail. It's a danger cue. It's a real thing. Your body, it hurts. Okay.
Wow.
So we start to see what's happening with people, the impact they're having on each other. We help them understand the impact they're having. One thing that people really don't get is withdrawal. When you shut down to protect yourself or because you're overwhelmed, you shut your partner out. And just because of the way your partner's brain's structured, that freaks your partner out. And your partner gets upset and starts pounding on the door, right? And you just hear the pounding. So people don't understand the impact they're having on each other. We help them see the dance. We help them see how stuck they are. We help them de-escalate that horrible blame shutdown thing. We help them see that they're both hurting, they're both lonely. And they start to come together, and they start to be able to slow that dance down and create a sort of safe platform to look at their relationship. So we slow down the negative dance, teach them about relationships, teach them about the drama they're caught in. And then, because you mustn't stop there, then we help them learn to take risks, actually put their needs into words, talk to their partner in a way that pulls their partner close. And when we help them create these positive dances, bonding and closeness, those moments are so powerful. All our research says when you create those moments of connection, our brains hold on to them. They are so powerful for us. We remember them. It's kind of like, it's like home. If you found your way home, you know how to get there next time. You've gone, you'll make it again. So the next time you're in a fight, some part of your neurons in your brain remember, hey, it's not hopeless here because I know the way home. I remember when she looked at me and she said this, and you'll find your way back there again. That's how we get couples out of stress.
Wow. So really, I think what I understand you're saying is that it's moving it from like the intellectual knowledge, information stage down to the emotional, intimate. Is that correct? And that journey for a lot is very foreign for some. They've never done that. And for others, it's almost like, how do I get there?
You're absolutely right. This is about emotional connection. It's not about an intellectual decision. I love you isn't an intellectual decision. And, and what you say is true. But I think we underestimate people. We've been doing this for 30 years with all kinds of different folks. We've done this stuff with Navy SEALs in the US. We do this with the firemen of New York. We do this with policemen in Denver. We do this with bus drivers and the intelligence officers who are high up in the US military. I mean, we do this with everyone, okay?
Yeah.
And our experience is, you may not be used to going there, to that emotional place where you can talk about how when you see a certain look on your partner's face, you actually start to feel scared. It's actually scary to see that look on her face because that face tells you, you've blown it, buddy. You're not going to make it with me. Okay. And it might be foreign for you to say that, but our experience with people, men and women, is that if we give them safety and we guide them a little and we help them just connect with those feelings and they start to get that it's okay to connect with those feelings, just means they're a human being. Not that they're somehow weak, right? That those feelings are human. We've all got them. You don't get to choose whether you've got those feelings. You've got them.
Mm-hmm.
They're wired in. The question is what to do with them. Right? People learn. They learn. I mean, we wouldn't get the results we do if they didn't. They learn.
Right.
And what's interesting to me is, in particular, we think that men don't want to talk about their feelings. But our experience and our research says that men actually like EFT. They like the Hold Me Tight book. I get emails from guys telling me they like the Hold Me Tight book. We donated a whole bunch to this huge American base of soldiers in Germany. I don't know why. They've got so much money. I don't know why they needed us to donate, but we did it anyway. And the librarian wrote to me and said that when the guys saw the books when they first arrived, they all made jokes. They said, oh, that's a stupid book. We're not going to read that stupid book. Right? Then she said, then they started disappearing. And then one day, one of the guys who'd been really contemptuous came in and said, I can't find that stupid book anywhere. Do you have any more copies of that stupid book? And she laughed and she said, why? I thought you didn't want to read it. She said, I've got one left. And he says, give it to me. So men like it because they find love something that makes sense. And men and women like to hear that their emotions make sense. There's nothing wrong with them. And, they're about being human. We all have these emotions.
Right.
And so basically people will go there. They get to know this emotional territory easier than you think.
So what you're saying is that this emotional therapy or emotional focus therapy is not necessarily dependent upon a counselor sitting in the room. This is something that someone could pick up a book and begin to read and make these changes. Is that because there's a framework around it? And if there is, what would be some suggestions for folks that are listening right now to begin that process?
Well, folks, yes, that's why I wrote Hold Me Tight, because I wrote Hold Me Tight because we started with distressed couples who came into therapy. But I got so tired of walking through chapters in my hometown and looking at all these books on the bookshelves about relationships that didn't say anything about all this incredible new science that I was a part of. I thought, well, this is ridiculous. Why aren't we teaching people this? So finally I thought, well, nobody's going to write the book, so I better write it. And just reading the book, I think the feedback from people is that you can learn a huge amount just from reading the book. And love sense, of course, even more. It's got even more science in it. You can read a huge amount from reading the book. You can get a lot out of that. But also, there's Hold Me Tight education groups happening all over the place in the US, some in Canada, that you can find on our website, on the ICEF website. It's www.iceeft.com. People go to the Hold Me Tight groups, which are about 16 hours of relationship education. I'm doing one at the Heart Institute in town right in now. The Heart Institute asked me to do one for couples that are dealing with cardiac disease. Okay, and people love them. They just love them because they say, why didn't anyone tell us this before? In some ways, it's so obvious. How come? And we say that about science. We say it's so obvious that you have to clean your teeth.
Yeah.
It's so obvious.
I guess my question is, I understand the terminology and I understand I can read the book, but is there anything that right now you could tell me to connect with this idea of emotional focus therapy? Like what's like a practical way I could be, if I was walk home right now and sit down with my wife, how could I do that? I guess that's my question as a listener right now. I'm thinking, okay, it makes sense, but I still don't know the practical aspect of what do I do next?
That's pretty hard to tell you in this format. I'm going to tell you to go read the book.
Okay.
But to give you an idea of the sort of things we do in the Hold Me Tight program, I would ask you to look at the quality of the emotional connection you have with your partner, about the safety of that relationship. Do you share with your partner? Can you confide with your partner? Can you confide with your partner when you're uncertain, when you feel vulnerable? Can you confide hurt feelings to your partner? Do you feel like your partner's there for you? You know, do you trust that your partner will be there for you when you need them? What do you do when you feel hurt, abandoned, rejected by your partner? You're going to feel that way, even in the best relationships. What do
Yeah.
you do? So first of all, I'd sort of encourage you to sort of look in your relationship in those attachment terms, in those bonding terms. And then I'd invite you to look at the places you get stuck. We all get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens in your recurring fight? What happens when you get threatened and it feels like there's no safety between the two of you? The person you love can hurt you more than anyone in the world, right? So, because they know the place to poke, right? So what happens? Do you shut down and withdraw? Do you say, I don't want to talk about this anymore? We can talk about it tomorrow. Or do you turn and say, don't you walk away from me? When I talk, you're going to listen. And how can you act this way? Who do you think what do you do? So we encourage people to look at their style in the dance. So they ramp the music up loud and say, you will respond to me. I'll make you respond to me. Or do you like shut down and say, oh my God, turn the music off, turn the
Got
music
it.
off, like somebody
Yep.
stop it.
Yeah.
So we help people understand how they dance in those moments when there's no safe connection.
Yeah.
And then we encourage them to talk to their partner about what that's like. If you usually withdraw, I would bet that you don't ever sit down and talk to your wife and say, or your husband and say, honey, when I turn and walk away, you don't like it, but you know what? I don't really understand what happens to you. What happens for you when I turn around and walk away? I just know you don't like it, but I just get sort of overwhelmed. I just sort of feel like I have to run. But I want to know what happens for you. And most people are absolutely shocked when the partner says something like, I feel alone. I feel shut out. I feel like you don't care. I feel like I don't matter to you. Just starting to understand the impact you have on each other is huge, the
Yeah.
negative impact. And then starting to talk about, when do you feel safe together? When do you feel closest to each other? How do you learn to let each other in? Those kinds of things are crucial.
Yeah. You talk about in your book about this research that you've done, and best way I could probably describe it is ankle shock story. And it's really, I think, the results of this therapy. Can you give us a little bit of help our listeners understand what you uncovered in that and
Yeah.
how it applies to this secure attachment?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Most of my studies are looking at distressed couples and then giving them therapy and then seeing the changes. But in this case, I joined with a neuroscientist from the University of Virginia, and we were doing a study trying to show that we can not only help people feel more satisfied with their relationship, we can help them actually bond, feel more secure and connected in their bond, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
Because most people will tell you, well, those bonds take years to develop. And we're saying, no, we can change the nature of them in 20 sessions, which is the big, okay? So this was part of it. So as part of that study, by the way, we found we could do that. But this was part of that study was that we took the women in the study who had to be distressed in their relationship and feeling really insecure in their relationship, feeling like they couldn't count on their partner on a bonding level. We put them in an fMRI machine, which is a bit scary. Your head's in a cage. The whole thing's humming around you. And we told them, when you see an X in front of your face, there's about a 30% chance you'll be shocked on your ankles. And we left them alone in the machine, and we watched what happened to their brain, and then we asked them whether the shock hurt. And basically, when they were alone in the machine, at the beginning of the study, they said the shock was very painful, and their brains went berserk with alarm when they saw the X. And then we had a stranger hold their hand, reach into the machine, hold their hand, and we had their partner hold their hand, and it was just the same. Their partner made no difference. Their brains went berserk when they saw the X, and they said the shock was painful. Then we gave them EFT, all these bonding conversations, and we put them in the machine again. When they're alone, their brains go berserk. When they see the X, they say the shock hurt. When the stranger reaches in, their brains go berserk, shock hurt. When they see the X and their partner holds their hand, nothing happens in their brain. Nothing. Zilch. Calm brain.
Wow.
And if you ask them if the shock hurts, they say it was uncomfortable. What is that? That is the mammalian bonding brain using connection with a trusted loved one as a safety. And it's such a powerful safety cue. It changes the way you perceive threat. It changes the way you perceive threat. And, that is fascinating. And it fits with, if we can create that in EFT, that's huge.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk right now about how therapy changes your brain. I don't like that stuff because, your brain changes every day, but in this case, it seems as if what we did in our session, how we helped these people change the way they connected emotionally, had a huge physiological impact on the way they process threat. And all the research says that securely attached people who feel that other people will come when they call, they just live in a safer world. They feel more sure of themselves. They know they can handle threats. They don't handle it alone. And they see threats. They don't see it as overwhelming and terrifying.
Yeah.
Their brain says, it's that thing again. It's that shock. And it doesn't even turn on.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're facing it all alone, your brain goes, I'm going to die.
Well, and I think the power of what you're describing here is, for the best way I could probably maybe summarize, is that we've all been wounded in relationship, and sometimes that's our spouse that's wounded us. And yet, but helping them go through that journey of bonding and opening up emotionally, they're being healed in that relationship on the other end of it. So we've been hurt and wounded in relationship, but we can also be healed in relationship. But a lot of it has to do, how well are we bonding emotionally and connecting to create that safe environment? Would that be accurate in terms of what that journey looks like?
Yes. And I think also one of the things from this science that's important is we're made for this kind of connection. Your nervous system, your brain is wired for this kind of connection. And it's wired to experience disconnection as painful and scary, right? And we're really starting to really understand how powerful what I just said is, right? And you're right, your spouse can threaten the hell out of you, can put you into danger zone, or your spouse can come and comfort you and create this ultimate sense of safety. And when you feel safe, you're in a different world. You're open to the environment. You're confident. You're curious. You can learn. You can take in information better. You can be alive. I think of it as a zip line. If you're on a zip line and you're really strapped in, and you tug on the line, it feels strong, then everything's fine. You're strapped and you're safe. So then when you go off, you go whee, and you notice the trees and you notice how bright everything is, and you're alive and it's fun. But just imagine if you tug on that zip line and you're not sure it's going to hold you.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's a whole different experience. You don't notice the trees. You don't learn anything about, hey, look how powerful I am. I can deal with fear. You're so obsessed with whether that zip line is going to break. Your whole world narrows down to that threat.
Yep.
And that's what happens to us if we feel we're facing life alone and the people we love don't care about us.
Yeah. So let me take it a little bit deeper, because what you're talking about is, in a sense, is there's some dependency on being vulnerable and emotionally connected. I think about a lot of our millennial generation, there's a strength in being independent and not connecting in that way. And I think a lot of them hold on to the belief system that, maturity and adulthood comes with being independent. What's the healthy line? And is there a line, I guess, drawn between healthy dependency and codependency?
Yeah. First of all, dependency has been given a bad rap. Okay. I think we've got very confused about it. Dependency comes out of the addiction literature. And it
Out of the what?
literally,
I'm sorry, I didn't.
addiction literature. It literally means somebody who will do anything to keep the relationship with an addict, including helping the addict stay addicted. That's what codependency means. Okay.
Right.
So we've taken that word and we've plastered it all over the place, and people don't understand. Bottom line is, constructive dependency is the healthiest thing for human beings you can imagine. We are not built for self. We don't do well alone. Hey, there's a thing in the paper today in Ottawa about how they put a man in solitary confinement in our prison for 18 months. And now he's in a mental institution because he's gone insane. And my response to that is, oh, duh. Oh, duh. Excuse me. This is 2016. Oh, what do you like? We use isolation as torture. Okay, what did you think you were doing? So the idea that there's something wrong with dependency is crazy. If you look at children, we learn to be independent with other people, not by pushing other people away. Kids who are securely connected and can count on their parents are the ones who have the confidence to go out and take risks and explore and find out that they can also be independent. Mm-hmm. They carry this image of their parents around with them as safe havens if they need them. And adults do that too. Okay, you carry this sense of your partner loving you around, and it gives you strength. You don't need the partner there every minute, especially when you're an adult. But, it's like the people who are securely connected have a stronger sense of self. They're more confident because they know that they're not alone in the world. This isn't a sign of weakness. Mm-hmm. This is a mistake made, and the media has sort of taken this and gone crazy with it, teaching young women, for example, that you need to be totally separate and independent. And if you're not feminist, you're not, this is nonsense. Okay. There was a lovely study of young career women. I talk about it in my book, Love Sense, where they asked young career women they could confide in their partner and how they dealt with stress. And did they turn to their partner when they were stressed? And could they count on their partner? And the women who said yes, they did, and they believed in that, and that was a good thing to do. They were more confident when they went out into the world. They took more risks when they went out into the world, and they reached their career goals faster. So it's really fascinating stuff. They've even done stuff in the Israeli military, where they looked at soldiers going through basic training, which apparently in the Israeli military is very, very, very stressful. And they found that soldiers who could turn to their commanding officer and they felt that commanding officer was supportive and caring. He wasn't just telling them what to do. He actually cared about them. And they could go to him and tell him that firing this gun worried them. And, they got scared sometimes when they didn't know how to do this procedure. Those soldiers were much more effective at their task. They were basically better soldiers. They were confident. They dealt with stress better. And at the end of basic training, they were better at working collaboratively with their fellow soldiers. They were more confident. They were less stressed than the soldiers who basically said, no, their commanding officer was brusque and just told them how to perform, made fun of them if they couldn't, or their commanding officer just didn't really tell them what to do and didn't want to hear about their problems. And so even in a non-family, non-couple context, we're looking at this strength that you get from a supportive, caring other. It's the most human thing in the world. Mm-hmm. It's just part of who we are.
Yeah. at the epicenter of what you're talking about is creating a safe relationship. I'm thinking about some of the listeners who maybe don't feel safe in the relationship today. Are there any exercises that you would recommend to them to help move to that safe relationship?
Well, I don't know if it exercises, because first of all, you have to start off with just noticing the dance you're in and maybe putting on some new glasses, which is why I say to people, read the book, or go to my website, go to my Dr. Sue Johnson website and look at some of the videos, things we've got on there.
Great.
You show them to your partner, talk about them, right? I think, first of all, you have to understand where you're standing now. In terms of an exercise, what I was talking about before, which is talk to your partner about when you get stuck. Who's dancing how? Do you get stuck when you withdraw? Do you get stuck? Does your partner get stuck in demand withdrawal? Or do you both withdraw? Do you both frost each other out? Okay. Talking about when you get stuck and what that's like for you can open doors to starting to learn things about your partner. Very difficult to be curious when you feel you're in danger. Right. It doesn't work.
Yeah, they don't go together.
No, I'm not curious if I'm in danger. I'm just watching for you to make the wrong move and then trying to counter it, right? So it's about being aware and learning to see things differently, and actually even believing. For a lot of couples, it's just about believing that this is possible. In our society, you've got all this stuff. Every time I open the paper or a magazine, there's stuff about how marriage is out of date, monogamy is impossible. If you're in an exclusive relationship, you're bound to be deprived sexually, because everyone knows that closeness, familiarity destroys sex. No, it doesn't.
Right.
Okay? There's all these myths and pessimism out there, and people get totally discouraged. They say, I'm having these arguments with my partner. I'm feeling lonely. That hurts. As a guy said to me in my office the other day, he says, that hurts. I don't even know why that hurts. And maybe it shouldn't hurt. Maybe it means I'm a wimp. But you know what? It hurts. And I said, yeah. Have you ever, you're right, it does. Have you ever told your partner that? And he says, no. I say, that would be strange for you. And you have to start there. You have to start with, he says, well, yeah. Guys don't do that stuff. I don't tell my partner that. I said, well, what would it be like? She's listening to us talk. He said, well, that's one thing, listening to us talk, but I'm not going to turn and tell her that. So I said, so what's going to happen if you turn and tell her? And he says, I don't know. I've never done that with anybody. Maybe she won't like it, or I don't know. And so I said, well, why don't you just turn and tell her? I can talk to Sue about this in front of you, and I can even think in my head, like, gee, it hurts to be disconnected from my partner. Gee, I don't know what to do when that happens. It really hurts. He says, well, I can't tell her I don't know what to do. I said, right. So, why don't you just tell her, you can listen to this stuff with Sue, but now for me to turn and actually tell you this makes me really uncomfortable. I'm really scared about what's going to happen. So he turns and he tells her, she's right. I can't tell you this stuff, okay? I even have a hard time admitting this to myself. I can't tell you this stuff. And his wife goes, oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry you feel this way. And the guy looks at me like, what just happened? I don't understand what happened here. Right? It's like, it's kind of like people don't even know what is possible in relationships. And they believe all this very pessimistic stuff. So just knowing that, yes, you can shape a bond. Yes, they make sense. And yes, you can learn how to create a safe, loving relationship. That is also, by the way, the pathway to the best optimal sexual life, right? Yeah. Yes, you can do this. People need to know that just in.
That's good. Well, I wanted to finish by just asking, we have some audience questions that folks that have written in and wanted to get your advice. So the first one is from Derek S., Pasadena, California. He writes, my wife tends to be anxious and I'm avoidant. Our marriage is suffering. How can we fix this? And why are we like this?
Yeah. Okay. So, it's like basically what you're saying is your wife pushes for contact and reassurance from you, and something happens where you're not quite comfortable with that, so you shut down. And the more you shut down, the more anxious your wife gets. You know what? If you know that already, you're halfway there.
You're halfway there.
If you know that already, maybe you guys can turn and have a conversation, and you can say, I don't know why I'm so anxious. I don't know why you're so worried all the time. Maybe you need me to tell you more that I love you, care for you. And say, I don't know why I move away so fast. I'm not sure what happens, but I know I don't want you to tell me that I've failed somehow and I'm disappointing you. Like one guy said to me, I can hear anything except my wife telling me that I'm the big disappointment. I don't want to hear that. So I run, right? If you know that you're avoidant and she's anxious and you can start talking about that dance, you're halfway there. And maybe just, try to talk about how you could help each other feel a bit safer in those conversations. How you can help her understand what happens to you in the moment before you run. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
But why you're like that, I think you need to listen to the rest of this interview. Okay.
That's some good advice. Let's go to Karen from Yuma, Arizona. She writes, my husband and I are middle-aged. However, his libido is still in its 20s. I'm afraid that as I head towards menopause, our sexual intimacy may suffer, and my husband will search for love elsewhere. How do we prepare for this change before it arrives in our marriage so that we don't feel as though we're missing out on great sexual intimacy as we get older?
Okay. Well, the short answer is you talk about it. You talk about it. And, it sounds like what you're saying to me is you're worried. You're worried that if your libido starts to slow down, that somehow your husband will find that so awful that he will turn to someone else. And I would suggest to you that you share that with him. It's kind of like you're probably underestimating the connection that your husband has with you and how much he values that connection. And what we see is when people have secure connection, they can just coordinate their moves sexually much better. They can deal with differences like, actually, I remember working with a couple where he said, the problem with us is we have huge differences in sexuality. When you really, they were caught in dreadful fights of him pushing for sex and her shutting down all the time. Once that changed, and they could actually start to feel safe with each other, she said to him, well, how many times a week do you actually want to make love? And he says, 5. And she says, oh, well, 3 is pretty good for me. And he says, but I'm really willing to hold you and snuggle with you and talk to you for another 2 times. And he says, oh, okay. Now, this has been a fight that's gone on for 20 years. And when they start to feel safely connected, they can deal with that difference. So maybe I would suggest you talk to your partner about this. And there is there's chapters in Love Sense, and there's a chapter in Hold Me Tight, talking about sexuality. Because sex isn't just about orgasm and sexual release. Sex is about bonding.
Yeah.
A lot of good sex is all about being touched, held, and that amazing connection that our brains just long for.
Yeah.
So you can still have that when you're 85 or 90. Okay?
There's hope.
Yes, there's hope.
Sharon from Kent, Washington, she writes, I consistently find that I compare myself to my boyfriend's ex-wife, and I'm very insecure that he has been in love proposed, been married, and a wedding before, etc., and that these things just won't be as special the second time around with me. How can I be more confident that what we have is special and unique, and how can I get out of this toxic cycle of negative self-talk?
Right. Well, I would maybe ask you, who taught you to doubt that you were special and lovable? And I don't know who that was, but somebody taught you that. Okay, so this is a sensitive place you have, and maybe to think about that sensitive place. You know, it's not just something about who you are that just happened. Somebody taught you that way, and that means that you can relearn. You can change that learning. And then I would encourage you to share this with your man and say, you know, there are certain times when something happens and I start to doubt myself and worry about whether I'm that special to you. And I start to worry that you think about your ex-wife. And sometimes I think maybe that I can't be as special to you as she was. And I start to worry. And then I'd encourage you to think about what you need for him to help you with that. How could he help you with that? And you might be able to say to him, I need your reassurance sometimes. I need to just be able to come to you and say, for some reason, this doubt has come up today and it's sort of taking me over and I don't know what to do with it. And I just need to tell you, and I need your reassurance. And I just need you to tell me, honey, you're my special one. You're the one I chose now. You're the one I want to be with. And you know, sometimes we don't want to tell our partner exactly what we need, but really our partner, the more help we can give somebody, the better. Okay. They can't get. So, you know, then maybe he can say, oh, I get it. Okay. I can tell you that. Honey, you're my special one. You can come and ask me for this anytime. And you need help to, this isn't something you can deal with just all by yourself in your head. You know, we need to be aware and think, well, how did I learn this? But then we need to get a new experience happening and go out and do it in the dance with our partner and get our partner's help. In the end, a good relationship is where you can call for somebody and they come and they help you find your emotional balance. They help you go back to an emotional safe place. That's what a good relationship is. That's what we all want.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dr. Johnson, thank you so much for
most welcome.
You know, the work that you've done, the research has gone into this, and quite literally thousands that have been helped because of what you've shared with the world. And to that, we're grateful. The book we've been talking about is Love Sense, and you can go to drsuejohnson.com. There's a lot of other resources that are available to help you really begin to walk this out on a very practical level. So I can't encourage enough our listeners to pick up this book, read it. Hold Me Tight is another one that is just exceptional in terms of really understanding this emotional focused therapy and ultimately the safe relationship, a secure connection, I think is what we all long for. And it is possible. It's possible. So Dr. Sue, thanks again for being on the show.
Most welcome. Nice to be with you.
Take care.